Welcome, everyone, to the Science of Spiritual Growth. This is episode 5.3. Very excited to be here talking about spiritual practices. What are the desirable outcomes of a yoga and meditation practice, and how we're going to apply these to the world? This is the conversation. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. In the description to this podcast, you'll find links to how to contact me and my co-host, how to join our private Facebook group where we give private content. If you don't know who I am, I'm Yogi Chris, PhD, founder of Ninth Limb Yoga. It's a brand of yoga. It's a new path to the same mountain peak. Author of many books, host of many podcasts, and also have a PhD in the human normal universities. It's in engineering, and so I'm sure I'll draw some of that information for you here today. And very excited to be here talking about this subject. I'm joined, as usual, by my co-host, Yuri Verbishchuk, young man, white man from Toronto, Canada, but with full recall of past life of being a non-white man, a Buddhist monk from Southeast Asia. And he is an advanced meditation practitioner in this lifetime. And we'll be drawing some of that wisdom and knowledge for us today. And so right away, I would just like to get started with, the vital, just the essential, essentialness, the requirement, like that you have a solo spiritual practice, something that you do that is just you, that's you and your thoughts or non-thoughts if you're going for that. It's a personal experience. It's something that you can push and drive your own evolution forward. This is like a spiritual practice, a ritual, a yoga practice, a meditation practice, some kind of service, even like self-study, when you just kind of tuck yourself away in a little cocoon and you study things that are for self-development, self-awareness. And there are other practices too, but just the essential ingredient of a personal spiritual practice in your own evolution and how this will translate to a better quality of life. And we're going to connect some of the dots today. So I'll hand it over to Yuri, hear your voice. What's your take on the necessity? That's the word I think I was looking for earlier. The necessity that everyone listening, everyone in the future that will listen, needs a personal, like almost like alone time, perhaps, or how would you describe it? Is there some way you could describe the qualities or characteristics of a personal spiritual practice?
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion in people's minds, including myself. And the confusion can be untangled only through inward looking and insight. So spiritual practice is necessary because that's the only way that I see to untangle the confusion inside. Also, when I was 16, 17, 18, that was the time that I was beginning to become awake. I was beginning to be conscious of my own kind of experience of living. And I desperately wanted to go out into the universe, like in a spaceship or something, and explore the different planet systems and how the universe works and why the universe was created and what's outside of the universe and why things are here and like what will make things come together. And then when I found Vipassana meditation, when I found meditation, I realized that I can explore the entire universe inside of myself. So if you want to untangle the mess of your mind and eliminate confusion and explore the entire nature of the universe, then get yourself a cushion and sit down with your eyes closed in a dark room, set up a timer, and just be aware of the in and out breath for 30 minutes without moving. And then report back and tell us your experience.
Wow. Yeah. And, I relate with that. I used to really, really want to explore space, and I was really into those ideas. And I'm actually circling back around, getting back into it as I read about like Elon Musk, creating, I forget what he calls the program, but basically, where you have people that fly across the world, instead of taking them in an airplane that gradually goes up and then, has to fight the friction of the atmosphere and then gradually goes down. He just sends a rocket ship straight up kilometers. So it's above the atmosphere. There's no friction. And then it's easy to go across and then just descend. And I mean, that's the beginning of like really publicly available, like space stations and things like this. I want to be the yoga teacher there, and I already float. Like it would just be nice to actually physically be floating too. So,
wow.
I really like how you described like the untanglement. And so maybe instead of moving forward, let's unpack this word that seems to be loaded, and everybody has their own little definitions for it that, maybe we can just kind of start a discussion about what is a spiritual practice.
Let's say I'm going through my life right now. I'm 23 years old, and something very traumatic happens to my life. Maybe someone leaves me that I really love, or someone passes away, or something very tragic happens that causes a lot of heartache. And through, I don't know, and then I just continue forward. And I can continue forward doing the business that I'm doing with my life and continuing to move forward in my life. If I don't resolve the issue, if I don't resolve the issue in my heart, then it's going to continuously produce thoughts and emotions and feelings that I don't want to have 50 years down the road. So what I see spiritual practice is not going forward necessarily, yes, going forward, but stopping, standing still, and cleansing your insides, cleansing your mind.
Fascinating. Right after I asked the question, and then I passed it off to you, I remember my teacher AZD's talking just in passing about these things. It's amazing where a lot of the gold nuggets that he'll say will just be like little sound bites within sentences, or little sentences within a bigger monologue. And those are like the keys that unlock something, the little key code. It's like embedded in the whole paragraph. And I remember him saying something like, spiritual practice is somehow helping other people. It was something like that. Helping other people is spiritual practice. And then as you're talking and resolving these issues, clearly, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the issues, the conflicts, and all of these things, they become apparent only as you interact with the world. That the conflict is not independent of the world. It actually depends on there being a world outside of you that you interact with that like reveals the conflict. And so the conflict inside is, it's really a conflict outside, on the outside too, like, because the conflict outside reveals that there's a conflict inside. And so like, as you say, resolving, sitting still or standing still, cleansing, resolve the conflict inside should result in less conflict outside. Which if I lead further towards like AZD definition, or it's not really a definition, but it's something he said that like it resonated with me. It's like, that people that are helping people that maybe aren't sitting and meditating, they're not stretching and breathing, they're not mantras or even reading books. Like if they're alleviating suffering in other people, I mean, who am I to say that's not a spiritual practice? But I mean, not all spiritual practices are made equal, right? Nobody's equal. No practices are equal. It's, the effectiveness of, how you can climb your own evolution and, like you say, like resolve conflict. There was my girlfriend was with me yesterday. We were talking about something that had happened at her work, a conversation. There was a bunch of people, and like everybody was about their, long story short, without giving too many details, they were talking about a certain like goals they had, fitness goals, the attractiveness goals. There were a bunch of women, they're nurses in like the pre and postpartum part, before birth, after childbirth hospital. So it's all women. So they're all talking about like their goals as far as like attracting a mate or something like that. And there was unconsciously, she had said something that was deviating from the core theme of what everybody else was saying. It at surface value appeared to be the same thing. I don't know, Dr. Ace, are you on right now? Do you want to come live, or is that you want me just to tell the story, or should I not tell the story? What do you think? See, Dr. Ace is on, so maybe she could be here to say about it. Share it. I can't go live. All right. What was it? It was something about like, Jenny wanted to lose weight, and Jackie wanted to, get a boob implants, and then, Sandy, she wanted to start her diet, and, Marcy, she wanted to go to yoga. And then Angie says, yeah, I've been working on my glutes lately. Okay, so all four of them were talking about a future idea that they wanted to do in the future, and that they had not yet taken action for. So it's one of those predicaments that a lot of us find ourselves in sometimes, that we know what we're supposed to do, but we just don't do it. we know that we're supposed to start a diet, but we're not doing. We know we're supposed to lose weight, and supposed to meaning we want to. There's a part of us that wants to do that. That's the only supposed to. I mean, but for some reason we're not doing it. Thing inside that's like stopping it. And so 4 women. Let's just say it was. I don't know how many women it was. But 4 people. They say this goal they have for themselves that they have yet to take action because there's something inside that's stopping them. And then there's Angie saying, "Here's what I am doing." And so what ended up happening, what she was telling me is that they kind of not really like attacked her, but they did. It was like 1 or 2 of them got like passive aggressive and started like teasing her about something or whatever, like, your butt isn't getting that big or something, women can be harsh. And so I'm analyzing the situation and I'm like, oh, because you were unconscious of this, you were unaware of this, but you conflicted with them, right? They were on a certain train of thought, and then you came in with your train of thought that sounded maybe the same. It had maybe a similar voice tone, or you thought that you were being bright in your disposition. They started getting self-conscious and feeling bad about themselves because you told them something you were actually doing to improve yourself, whereas they were all in fantasy land. So so that did not alleviate suffering. In fact, it created suffering for them, which then turned out to be, it resulted in suffering for her too, because then they teased her and she didn't know what to say. She was surprised. It caught her blindsided that they attacked her for any reason, and which was a light attack. So we brainstormed, and really then we found something that Angie's has been wanting to do that has not been able to do, put into motion. And if she had said that thing and we role played, like, what if you had said this thing? And like it clicked for her. She's, oh, and it had something to do with like patience with her son or some quality that she wanted to, more loving or more, patience, listen better or something like that. I want to listen better to my son. And, so that was similar to what Sandy's of, I want to start a diet, or Jenny is like, I want to start doing yoga, because it's something that they know they should be doing, but they haven't made it happen yet. And that would have been rapport among all the women, even though it changed the subject, but really the underlying theme was the same. So why am I saying this? Is a spiritual practice is alleviating other people's suffering, which maybe we start with alleviate the suffering within, understanding that it only exists in relation to the outside. But then, understanding communication, because what a subtle little nuance. I sit and think about it for like 4 minutes to even get like why that was a conflict. Oh, and then it dawned on me, So if all of your problems, all of your internal conflicts are in relation to the outside world, it seems like communication, which is also like how you interact with the outside world, it's the technology of how you commune with the outside world. Wow, there's a good definition for communication. That communication should be a very pivotal spiritual practice. Like what does he say? Jordan Belfort would call it a linchpin. This is a linchpin skill set for spiritual development. Fuck, man, I'm like on sentences right here, I want to write that down. I'm going to pass it off to Yuri while I write that down.
Yeah, I see communication. The image that came to my mind after you told that story is like beautiful clothes. Beautiful clothes are always nice, and you can go to very, very high-end places with beautiful clothes, and people admire beautiful clothes. It's better than wearing really dirty clothes. That's like bad communication, which is dirty clothes. That's no good for anyone. If you wear really good clothes, then it's like very good for everyone. It's very good for the people that are wearing bad clothes and for the people that are wearing good clothes. But if you're not clean inside and you're like wearing the most amazing clothes, but you haven't showered in 10 days and you've been, running triathlons and swimming in the jungle rainforest or something. Second thing is, if I take an orange and squeeze it really hard, 100% of the time, no matter what location of country I am, no matter what time of day, no matter what planet I'm on, orange juice is going to flow out. If I take an apple and I squeeze the apple really hard, apple juice is going to flow out. Similarly, if you take me and you put pressure on me, then whatever I am is going to squeeze out. It's going to outflow. So by me sitting and practicing meditation for 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day, 10 hours a day, and doing absolutely nothing to help humanity, quote unquote, I'm actually doing more for humanity than if someone were to go out and, I don't know, that's not fair to say, but because I am removing the toxins within myself. When I get squeezed, I don't toxify other people. So if you remove if, for example, if those 4 women were to meditate more or have some more empathy or more awareness, then maybe they wouldn't project, they wouldn't attack her. I don't know, but this is the way that I understand it, and I think meditation is very necessary for helping humanity.
Absolutely, man. And it's easy to point fingers to. And in every conflict I've ever had with another human, they're responsible. Like, if they were different, it wouldn't have happened. But I don't have control over other people. So I always point inwards. What if Angie had had the right communication technology, then it wouldn't have happened. Every conflict I ever had, or ever have, or ever will have, I will learn from it. And the lesson I learned from it, could I go back in time and apply that lesson before it, then it wouldn't happen. So that's the solution to every problem is within me. It's just maybe not yet realized. And this is what we want, is realization. And so how we get realization, so kind of circling back around to like spiritual practice, like anything that resolves internal conflict, which is necessarily, like, it is not independent of conflict with the world. There is no internal conflict that doesn't involve conflict with the world. Or do you agree with that? I mean, I think before we move forward, we should analyze that.
There's a person in my life that whenever they are presented with a certain situation, they get agitated and they react in a certain way. So in this context, the world comes and pressures them, and that's the juice that flows out of them. But they can overcome this. They can solve this within themselves just by sitting in a dark room, totally separated from all of humanity, 1,000 miles away in the jungle. And they can solve this within themselves. They don't need the pressure of the outside world to help them resolve it. But if this person were to sit in a dark room 10,000 miles away from humanity and work on themselves and resolve this issue, then when they are presented with a similar situation, the exact same situation, that reaction would no longer happen. So it's all about this instrument and how well you are with this instrument and how well you can manage this instrument and how well you can clean and work this instrument, heart and the mind and this whole being. So it's 100% to do inside and not even 1% to do with the outside.
Yes. And you would not know the effect of the instrument if it was not for the outside.
Yes, absolutely.
So there is the tuning of the instrument is nothing without the outside.
There's a story that's very perfectly summarizes exactly what you said. And it's a Buddhist monk goes into the forest and decides to meditate in solitude. And after 3, 4, 5 years of sitting by himself, he sends a letter to his master over the riverbank saying, "Oh, I'm perfectly enlightened. The bliss of and joy of harmony and peace and balance. It's so wonderful. It's so amazing." And the master takes his beautifully crafted note and he just writes a big fart, and sends it back to him. And when the guy reads it, he just becomes furious. "Oh my God, what do you mean, fart? This is so beautiful. Look, I'm enlightened." And then after, he realizes, "Oh, I have some more work to do."
Yeah. So the outside world revealed that to him.
Yeah.
And only by himself, it was an illusion. And, when you say 10,000 miles away from humanity, kind of like when you were a boy and when I was a boy and our head was in space, we could be 3 feet from our parent and be 10,000 miles away in our head. There are so many people that are dissociated from the people around them, that are around people but not interacting with them, that are interacting with them but not acknowledging them. They're not actually communing with them with their communication. They're just talking at them like a fucking jackal, just cackling at them. They might as well be 10,000 miles away from communication with that other human. And, the frustrations inside, the conflict inside is the world outside of you did not respond to you the way you wanted. Life didn't go the way you wanted. And if you were in a sensory deprivation tank all by yourself, all the conflicts that are within you that would come out would be memories of how the world did not interact with you the way you wanted. And So the resolution is inside, the conflict is inside, but there is a phenomenal world that is occurring independent of you. The whole tree falls in the woods, no one's around to hear it, it still makes a sound. And, I love tuning my instrument. Though there's this documentary I saw, and then I see Saul has some questions, Mercer has some questions. And somebody's raising their hand. Saul is raising their hand. I'll just say this one point and then we'll bring Saul on. I saw this documentary. There was this like Himalayan yogi or just mountain yogi. I don't know. He's northern India. And man, I mean, the guy just sat and meditated forever. He looked like a crazy person kind of, but it was just insane when he would walk down from the mountains. And it was this documentary that caught him like at his cave. And then when he started his journey, and he was just like away from everyone, like by himself. And had apparently studied with the master for like a couple years, but then he was like, you don't need to study with the master anymore because you can just communicate with them with your thoughts. So I don't need to physically be there anymore. I just ask him questions and he'll tell me. And so he's walking down the mountain and nobody's around him at all. And then slowly, as he gets down into the foothills, he starts getting to like some really, really rural villages. Like one or two people would like notice him and then like just start following him. It was like, seriously, it was like Forrest Gump. It was like these people were following him, just walking near him. And he would tap them on the head and then just like keep walking. Like they would come and bow their head for like a blessing and he'd tap them on the head and then just keep walking. And like never stop his pace. Man, he kept going past another village, past another. Pretty soon, like hundreds of people are just following this guy as he's walking towards the big city down from the mountain. This is this yogi. This is the sage from the mountain that's coming. It's the real life. Like this happened in like the 60s or 70s. The color film. It's on YouTube. I forget what the name of it is. And it's just fucking unreal. Like thousands of people. At some point, he's literally like the Beatles. Like people are trying to grab a hold of him and he's just like walking through, nestling through, and he's a little guy. And he's like pushing his way through the crowd. He just keeps walking, has a smile on his face. And then he goes and sits down on the stage. I don't remember any part of the movie where he's saying things. But what I did notice was, I mean, thousands of people he was tapping on the head. Man, fucking eventually it was like he was slapping. It was no longer a love pat. It was like... Maybe he was enlightened and like they needed that. They needed the hell knocked out of him or something. It was funny as hell. And I don't know, with my eyes, with, like if you've ever noticed when you close your eyes, you can see someone walk in front of you. And, if you have sensory perception of things that are not so physically obvious. Like this you only see because light particles collide with it. There's lots of things that light doesn't collide with that still are here. And, so through my vision, I was seeing this guy like accumulate tension as he interacted with 10,000 people that were just starving for his blessings. They were suffering in their villages and in their hard life. They were asking him for like, I don't know, salvation. I don't know what they were asking him for. But they were coming to him and they were like a mosh. They were just a big mosh pit. And he was just stayed in bliss. But eventually he came all the way down from the mountain into the big city. People coalesced around him and then he just turned around and walked back to the mountain. And people followed him and basically followed him back to their villages. And he went back. It was amazing to see him climb through the mountain. Like these are steep, like just jagged pebbles of rocks. And he's like with his cane, he's like Yoda. The guy looked like Yoda. And moved like Yoda too, would like check the rock with his cane to see if it was stable because it would just slide down the mountain. And then he would step on it. He'd be stepping on a rock like this big while he navigates the side of the slope to get to his cave. And then he sits down and then he's there for some more months. I think he was there for like 11 months or something since his last visit or something like that. So I saw it as he came down from the mountain, clean of all of, from the surface, settled, and then accumulated the karma of all of these people that were like interacting with him rudely interacting with him. Yeah, how do you interact with somebody that's rude with you without there being some exchange of? This is what AZD is a master of. AZD is a master of neutral karma in the social matrix versus neutral karma away from the social matrix, which would be like a monk. And so he's like a social monk in that way. So am I. So I saw this guy like accumulate karma, had all this tension in his face and body, went back to his cave, and then was going to resolve the karma of the masses that he had just accumulated. And so it was a very interesting sort of thing. And he said, if you want to come and learn from me, then the first thing to do is sit down, sit still, and chant the sound Om for 1 hour. If you can do that, then I'll give you the next lesson, which is quite hard if anybody's ever tried to do that. I went crazy after going like 45 minutes. I couldn't go anymore. It was not having it. So I don't know why I was telling that story, but it was a fun story, right? Okay, so let's see. We got Saul put his hand down, so would you read his questions, please?
Yeah. Saul Castillo. I heard Yuri say that there could be demonic forces in certain music. Can you expound on this belief? Rappers invoke demons and allow the demon to flow through their being through blood sacrifice, and the demon helps the rapper become famous and helps him with his music. And I think that's why the lots of the imagery in the music industry is demonic, and you see a lot of lyrics with demon possession and selling their souls to the devil and making contracts with the devil. And something very recently that I discovered is that Queen, the artist Queen, in something along the lines, I don't know how accurate the story is, but the Freddie Mercury, the lead singer, one day he went out and did something weird, and then the next day he came back and he wrote the single or the song Rhapsody, something Rhapsody. And in that he says, Mama, I just killed a man. I was so young, basically talking about himself, that he just like ended his life or something, and sold his soul to Beelzebub. Beelzebub has a devil set aside for me.
That's fascinating. I always thought that was because he was gay and he died of HIV, and so he killed a man, put a trigger against his head. It was the guy giving him head, and gave him HIV.
That could also be true. Yeah, he did die of HIV too. Which is, I mean, the deeper that you dive into this, the more bizarre it seems. Like somehow the devil wants everyone to be turned gay and to make gay same-sex marriage okay, and it's all like being gay, and like every single music video that you see with like very famous people, not every single music video, but like these conspiracy theories, they're all devil horns and like gay people making out and all the devil, and like Christians are like, no, devil, stop rock music, and these conspiracy theorists are people are taking over the world. I mean, it's fascinating. And also something that's also fascinating is if you take a look at DC, Washington, DC, from satellite vision, the pentagram or the devil's kind of sigil is very clearly outlined in the highways. It's like unmistakable.
Wait, the pentagram is the devil's sigil?
Something like, I think it's like a devil's horn or something. I don't really know. But yeah, it's there. And when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, man, obviously, like there's so much power in the astral realm or in magic, then why wouldn't you use it if you were in politics? I would allow the entire field of politics to be firmly grounded in the space of demonology and whatever, working with spirits, because it's the most amount of power there. So it makes perfect sense. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe if I talk to Donald Trump, he'll give me some answers.
Maybe. All right. So, yeah, I don't really entertain such thoughts, but I think it's interesting. I think Frank White talks about that a lot, but just not a lot. He just I've heard him mention it. It makes sense. I mean, yeah. What is it? I saw a post by Michael Nightshade, who's an IMC guy that I follow on Facebook. He made a post something about, I think I mentioned this once. He was like, most millionaires don't believe in astrology, but every billionaire does. Something. Which I don't know if it's true or not, but I mean, it raised a curious eyebrow, I don't know that people are really that into magic, but I think, when you have so much pressure on you, I mean, I have minimal pressure on me. I have 25 people in the silent flute that are depending on me to be consistent, positive, every phone call, there is no off day. That's just 25 people. Donald Trump has 250 million people or whatever, looking to him. And a lot of them hate him. They never met the guy, and they somehow hate the guy that they've never met. That's like hating Jesus. You never met Jesus. Why the fuck would you hate Jesus? or I didn't. Okay, so I compared Donald Trump to Jesus. That's like hating Gandhi or something. It's like hating anybody. Hate anybody that you don't know. Like, is your life so worthless that you would hate somebody that you've never met? Like, how useful is that? And but just the pressure that would be on a person. Like I've, been in college athletics. Like the pressure on these football players, the pressures on head coaches of different sports. Just move on up, go to like the president of the university. The president of the university is like a huge role, and that's nothing compared to like a congressman or a president of a country or somebody that's like a CEO of like Walmart or something that has like so many employees under you, and just the news networks are on you, and then you command so much money, like so much pressure. Yeah, at some point you're going to want to surrender to a higher power so that you can just feel the relief of not having so much pressure on you. I mean, that's going to be the inclination anyway, especially given that almost all of those people were raised in a Judeo-Christian society, or in some society, if they're an immigrant or something, that did revere a higher power. So their early childhood memories involved looking at the adults in their culture surrendering to a higher power. So when it comes down to it, like I've told the story before where I held my breath for 6 minutes, and you start to regress, really. You start to really regress back into almost like fetal position into the brainstem. You start to have memories of early childhood, of mom, of even before mom. And man, with that kind of intensity, like you just regress to early childhood programming. And, with the pressure of the world on you, yeah, I would probably ask God for favor too, whatever God that is, which could be whatever. So, yeah. Mercer Ra, he asks, what sparked your interest in being a yoga instructor, and how can someone use their interest in a spiritual practice? Clean the question up if needed. Well, I just saw, I remember I met a senior teacher who had been practicing for 4 decades, and I took one of his workshops, which was a weekend of workshops. So it was like 5 workshops. And I got what he was saying, but I was the only guy there. All the other women there, like they just seemed like kind of clueless to what he was saying. Like they were doing the physical things that he was saying, but I was like getting massive shifts in my mindset just from what he was saying. And I wasn't registering that anybody else was getting these shifts. Like I don't know, maybe they hadn't explored their mind like that, or I don't know, maybe they were dumb or something. I don't know. They don't seem dumb. They were moms and older than me and whatever. And I likened it that I had been so reclusive up until that point with my yoga practice. So 3 years just practicing by myself, watching videos. Maybe if I needed to, I would go to a yoga class every once in a while just to, get a correction for a posture if I thought I was doing it wrong. Because you try to do it on your own for so long, you'll start to kind of warp your perceptions of what you think is right. And so the reclusiveness of my practice had really given me a lot of benefit from the solitude. I was independent of like the praise of others. I wasn't used to people looking at me doing my practice. It has many, many downfalls also. But for that reason, it had really opened up my mind. I had more freedom to express a sincere expression of my mind, because I was just, it's almost like like you would almost see this in like foreign exchange students. Like a foreign exchange student would come to this country, and then they would go to like a social activity or something, and they would not know the local social customs, and they would just behave from their original social customs, and they might make a fool of themselves almost, just looking absurd. But in that first or second moment of them doing that, they are truly innocent and pure, because they didn't intend to violate socially. They just were clueless. And so anyway, I forgot why I was saying that. So I got some benefits from his words, but I likened it that maybe these people, he wasn't able to relate with these people that had only ever practiced in a studio. They had many more years of practice than me. Many of them, one of them owned the studio. They were all yoga teachers. I wasn't a teacher yet. But I was like, man, I think this guy who was very similar to me, he had practiced on his own for 40 years. I had been practicing 3 years. He had been practicing 40 years. He had went to a guru in India and trained with him for 4 years. But outside of that, he was an airline pilot. He had a family, but nobody else was his teacher. He just practiced on his own for 36 years. And for that reason, I think it was difficult for him to relate with people like on that level. Like he was a fun guy. He was an airline pilot. He wasn't like a weird guy. But when it came to talking about yoga, like nobody, I don't think really got how he was saying what he was saying because they didn't have that alone experience of their yoga. And when I saw that and I was like, man, I think one day I'm probably going to teach. I've already been teaching university for 5 years. I was teaching wrestling for 4 years. Like it probably makes sense. At some point, I'm going to teach yoga. I'm pretty good at what I do. People have recognized it. But I don't want to start to teach yoga and not be able to relate with anybody. And then everybody thinks I'm a bad teacher because the truth be told, that would be a bad teacher. I mean, if you can't relate with the student where they are. So I was like, if I'm going to teach, I better start sooner than later. And then just keep getting better at my craft and get better at teaching. So that was like the spark. And then how can someone use their interest in a spiritual practice? Well, I mean, your spiritual practice is nothing if it's not helping you to alleviate the suffering of other people. Use your spiritual practice to alleviate the suffering of other people. There. What do you think about that, Yuri?
I'm learning more about horoscope signs, and Virgo that's like a very Virgo thing to say, I think.
Which part?
Well, like, you're very humanitarian, you're very helping others. And something that I remember you saying is, like, when I had a spiritual realization, you said, oh man, there's nothing better than seeing us, like, someone blossom into spiritual awakening and realization from your own teaching. And so I can see that you greatly admire, like, helping people and helping people develop and growing the minds of others.
Well, no one's ever said that to me, so that's cool. Thanks.
I don't have any other comments on the question.
Cool. Sal Castillo, he says, just wanted to say thank you guys for this incredibly insightful conversation. It's great to be here. Whoa, never saw it that way. Cool. All right, we got any YouTube comments. We got Donna Hildebrandt says, blessings again. Awesome. Blessings to you too, Donna. And no comments on Instagram. All right, so we wrap it up. Any closing thoughts or closing words, Yuri?
Yeah, closing thoughts, something that I need to say is that people need to be careful about the music that they listen to, because the vibration or the energy that the song that you're listening to, it makes you into that vibration. So if you're listening to like I was listening to AC/DC just a few minutes ago, Thunderstruck, and I could tell it changes my whole being into that kind of metallic feeling, which if that's what you want, then go ahead and do that. And also the lyrics that the song has, and you're continuously repeating in your mind if you're playing back the music, and it's also programming your subconscious mind. So I can very easily see this now with my friends that listen to a particular category of music, like rap songs. They're very much like the rap songs. So if you want to very quickly change yourself, then simply adjust the music that you're listening to, and you're going to take on that consciousness. So that's a tiny technique which will magnify your existence, your life.
Yes, this is, exactly what I'll be lecturing on tomorrow. I've added a second lecture to the silent flute every week. So now I lecture on Monday nights and Saturday early afternoons. And tomorrow's lecture is definitely going to be the watchman at the gate, the conscious mind as the watchman for the subconscious mind. And, various ins and outs of that. It's a really exciting topic. I don't really want to go too into it now, but needless to say that your subconscious mind never stops recording. Just as much as your heartbeat never stops beating. So when you go to sleep, your heart doesn't stop. What makes you think your subconscious stops? What are you listening to when you go to sleep? All right, so I'll leave it at that. That's a little teaser there. If you're interested in the silent flute training, go to ninthlimb.com. We got the links in the bio for other ways to reach us, and we'll catch you next Monday on the Science of Spiritual Growth. Namaste.